So hi guys, today we're going to go through different options actually producing sections. There's quite a few options out there and there's quite a few different products out there. Today I'm going to go through a few different bits like the section crate pack versus hanging sections, the difference between 4 section crates, 3 section crates, and I'm just going to break it down a little bit and how they actually work within a national or commercial hive. So first up we're going to just run through an actual section. This is an Irish section here, it's actually open on 3 sides. It's actually quite flexible, and in order to make the section bend we must soak it in water. You probably want to allow about 15-20 minutes, but I'm going to wet the section here first, and everywhere that there's a joint within the section, if we soak that with some water, it'll make it more pliable and more flexible to actually form it into a square section. So I'm just going to get some water and a paintbrush. You can use anything really guys, and I'm just going to rub it into the end points. Anywhere along where I need that to bend, I'm just going to put some water. Now, possibly going to leave it for about 10-15 minutes before I form a section. You'll notice there that I'm doing both sides of it here, and that's really only anywhere it bends. I'm going to leave that for a little bit and allow it to soak the water in. The next thing you'll see is a section crate. This is a standard 21 section crate. So it'll be 3 sections wide and 7 deep. Within the crate, the front of the crate is actually sprayed with a 45, and the back you'll see a solid block here. And you'll find that there's a dummy board here as well, that's also 45 top and bottom. And the reason it's 45 here is to allow bees better access to get in around the front sections and the back sections within the crate. You put the dummy board in here at the back and you'll wedge it at the end. You also get 6 3-section dividers and you'll get 7 sheets of wax. When you're using the sections, there is 2 different types. There's the Irish sections here, which has got opening on 3 sides, and then the English section is only open on 1 side. Most people, suppliers here use the Irish sections as we're in Ireland, but when you're doing that you get 1 sheet of wax per 3. If you were using English sections, each one would have an individual square of wax to go into the section. So when this actually bends, we'll show you a little later on the process there. So guys, just to recap on that, when you get a section crate pack, you receive 21 sections flat pack, you receive 7 sheets of 3-section wax, you receive 6 dividers, and the section crate itself, plus instructions as to how it goes together. When putting it together, you go 3 sections wide, 1, 2, 3, and a 3-section divider between each one right the way back. That's why you need 7 rows of sections, 7 sheets of wax, and only 6 dividers. So guys, our section now I think is soaking long enough, and you can see it's starting to form lines along every point where it's been soaked on. So it should actually start bending quite easily. Sometimes you may snap them if it's not left long enough, but they form completely round and they connect back in on themselves. That's 1 side, so that's how you'll see it's actually open on 3 sides. Now, when a section is fully square, you're actually able to check it off the side of your crate here. So you can make sure that it's nice and square by sitting it against the square edge of your section crate here. And you'll note then that it's open on 3 sides, if you can clearly see that. And the advantage here now, I'm using my finger here on the back, thumb and fingers on the other side, and when I press, I'm wedging it open. And the idea of wedging it open like that is, in order for it to go into, the wax to go into it, you're going to take it out and you're going to wedge it open to slide it down in on the sheet. When it's fully down, the wax will be exposed on 3 sides, and the bottom you'll not see anything. And you'll slide that then directly down into the section crate. Completely down into the section crate here. You'll see then that it allows an extra bit of space here at the front with the 45 on it. And the next step then, after you have the 3 of them in place, is putting your divider in behind each one right the way through. The reason we use the dividers, if we didn't use them, the bees could draw one section into the other, and it gives them a boundary and a space that they have to work for to evenly fill out the section. The other thing is then, when you've got the sections and you're displaying them or selling them, you'll always know the top from the bottom, because the bottom side is always solid and the top you'll see a little bit of wax on all 3 sides. If you don't display them like that, honey can sometimes run out if each cell isn't sealed perfectly. So it's a handy way you determining whether the section is upside down or which way it is in time. So that's your 3 section for your section crate. So the section crate then, to use it within a national hive, most people actually use the 21 section crate within a CDB hive, but to use it within a national hive, you have a few options there. You can actually set it directly onto your roof if you're using a 7-inch deep roof, and insulate around it and keep it nice and snug. Heat and insulation is the key to producing good sections. You want as much heat in your hive as possible. That's why the likes of the CDB or the WBC are best suited for producing section honey, because you have more room for heat and insulation around. But when trying it in a national, the section crate will also fit internally within a super, but the super must sit down over the crate. It sits down over and it's very snug all round. If you were using a 4 section crate, there isn't quite as much room for insulation around it. The sections are often pretty much to the outside of the section crate, and we often find ourselves producing sections that it doesn't produce as good as sections as it does in a 3 section, because there's more insulation around it. But it's the same process overall, only you're using a 4 section divider, and the wax is slightly longer than the 3, is 1 section longer all around. Then when we step into hanging sections, I'll actually show you how a hanging section goes together and how it fits into a super. It works directly into a national super. So a hanging section here comes in 3 pieces. You've got a bottom, a top and 2 side walls. We just sit them together and we assemble them with our frame nails as you normally would. And we're just going to put one of these together and you'll see how it goes. Normally when putting a hanging section frame together, you just use 3 nails at each point. And the frame nails are more than sufficient for holding it together. That's the bottom in place with the 2 side walls. Just going to set the top into place now. And just making sure it's nice and tight internally here, so that there's no gaps within it. So the depth of a section and hanging section frame is about 48 millimeters deep, so you'll only actually get about 8 of them into a national super box. And within the hanging section frame, you slide 3 sections into each one. I'm going to go out this section here. That will actually slide in there. It takes a little bit of work, guys, because you want it nice and snug. If it's not snug, you won't actually get the sections apart in time. So you want them as snug as possible. So when you have 3 of them in, you can drop this into a national super and work the same way. Hang in place of a frame, and you use then what is called a 3 section hanging divider. And it's got extra bits glued onto the end in order to allow it to hang into a super in place. And if you can see here, that's it in place, and it allows the bees to work around, and it stops them from drawing one section into another again. And you'll only fit 8 hanging section frames into a national super box. You'll need 7 dividers when doing that, and 8 sheets of wax.